What do you think this picture is about? What is she thinking? Is she happy or sad? How do you know? This picture is called Migrant Mother, and it's an example of some of the photography used during the Great Depression. As historians, it is our job not only to analyze journals or artifacts, but to also read photos as text. Now, why do you think historians would use photography for their work? Well, historians use photographs to investigate what people or places might have looked like. They also use pictures to investigate what might have been important to people. Remember, pictures back then aren't like the pictures we have on our phones. They were expensive to make. And so by looking at a picture or a photograph, we can start to see what might have been important to people, what they wanted to remember. And finally, historians use photographs in order to create a visual record of the past. This means that when we look at pictures, we might be able to see what stores were on a street at a certain time, what clothes people were wearing. We can look and see what members of the family are included in pictures. And so historians use all these details to try and use photographs to understand the past. Now, let's take a look at a famous photo and uncover some of those pitfalls that can work against us as we use photos in our research. This was a famous poster for a movie of a Nazi parade during World War II. What do you see? What was the purpose of this picture? One pitfall of photography is assuming that photographs give an unbiased account of the past. Just like any source, for this photograph we'll need to know some background information. We'll want to know the photographer, the year it was taken, and some of the context that surrounds the creation of the image in order to use it as historical evidence. From what you know about World War II, what might you think is the purpose of this image? This photograph was intended to be used as propaganda, both to encourage support for the war in Germany and to encourage fear abroad from other countries. Photographers can use all sorts of elements in order to create the intended effect. So they can change the staging of the picture, what moment they capture, they can change the angle they're taking the picture from. All sorts of elements are selected as photographers take a picture. So having sourcing information and trying to understand some of that contextual information is vital to helping historians understand what questions a picture can answer. Now let's see another example and look for elements that the photographer could have changed. Take a look at this picture of Jacob Riis's Bandit's Roost. Now, this picture was created during America's Gilded Age when urban centers experienced major demographic shifts and increases in poverty. So what are some choices Riis could have made when he decided to take this picture? Well, he could have chosen the subjects, found a suitable location, styled the subjects how he chose. He can change any number of things, and this is why we have to be so careful when we use photographs and try and understand what they can tell us. So can we still use pictures as evidence? Of course we can use photos as evidence as long as we follow some general guidelines. Now just remember, here are some guidelines. Photos are an account of the past. So we have to remember that with any account there's a bias. And so when we look into this bias, we can see a little bit more and we can understand a more authentic version of the past. The next thing to remember is that context is key. If we want to understand the past, we have to understand the environment that people lived in. So when we work to find the context of a picture, the political and environmental and social elements that made up people's lives, it can help us better understand the pictures and help us decide what questions we can use for that source. Last but not least, photographs sometimes have a historical impact beyond their creation. This is something that we need to think about. That when we're looking at a picture, sometimes we're not only seeing what the author intended or the photographer intended, but we're also seeing the impact of time on these pictures. So what was the outcome of these pictures being used? Was it a personal photo that was just used for personal enjoyment? Was it propaganda that was used to promote some sort of government goal or, scheme? Or was it some sort of monument to the past? Were they trying to remember something? So trying to understand the purpose and the eventual outcome of these photos is really important. And most importantly, when we're using pictures, I just want to remind you guys to have fun. This is a great opportunity to dig deep and really